start, because I think obviously the recording starts from now, and I think it goes out as like an email to everyone, letting them know that we're gone live. So just to sort of like introduce you to everyone who will be watching. Courtney Brand is a food writer, content creator, and communications consultant for Tracing Studio, one of the restaurants with 2 Michelin stars in the UAE. I think that's one of 4 only, right? And we want to talk about all things foodie journalism in the UAE. But I know you don't just write in the UAE, right? You also work for clients abroad.
Yes.
So let's start with what drew you to sort of the F&B culinary landscape in the first place.
Great question. So my story goes back to Noma and 2013. I hadn't been interested in anything related to fine dining or writing about food. I was primarily a fiction writer. And then we went with friends we were supposed to go to Nepal, and then we ended up going to Copenhagen. Long story. And we were watching the Anthony Bourdain special, where he was speaking to Renee Redzepi. And I mean, imagine we're leaving like that night, and I just got on the Noma website and I got a 4 top for Friday night, which at this point they were first, second, or third in the world. So something came together. And I think when we went, I was so worried that I wasn't going to be cool enough or interesting enough, or what was I doing here, that sort of thing. And the team there could not be less pretentious. And so food writing to me, even though I'm writing about some of the best spaces in the world, has always been from a place of, this is for everybody. Chefs make food, for everybody in the world. It's not just for one group of people. So my writing has always attempted to have a bit of a sense of humor around that, to say, while I respect these chefs indefinitely, what they do is amazing, it's also something we can all do. You are always okay to go to any restaurant in the world, and you should always be made to feel that way.
Yeah. I'm like, I obviously read your stuff and your reviews, and I always find it, like, especially in the UAE, it must be quite hard to be very objective, especially when you're invited.
It is. And I think, I've been at this for 9 years, and that it's so important to have a healthy relationship with the chefs and the PR, both sides of the fence. So even if there's a review coming out tomorrow, which is not exceptionally great, the team already knew. I didn't publish any of that because while there are content creators who, maybe focus on the negativity or that sort of thing, first of all, it's very difficult to do that here. Second of all, it doesn't help anything. I'm not helping the industry when I'm sitting there being non-constructive a dining experience. So in a good way, to me, it's behind the scenes. It's also, I made a rule with myself that anything that goes on my, like, say, Instagram, that's saying that I like it. If you're following me and you see a dish or a place, like, I'm giving you some sort of subtle signal or not so subtle signal that I like it. So I've even gone so far as to say, behind the scenes, that if it's not good enough for my stories or my feed, like, I won't put it up because we just, it's really expensive in the UAE, and I go to some really expensive places, and I don't pay a lot of the time. And I have to really take that into consideration, that people work hard. They only have limited time off. Where should they be spending their money?
Yeah, definitely. But you do balance that with some negativity. I do see that woven in.
People,
and like, how do they react even to I bet some react to like some of the slightest negative. I used to work for Time Out and do restaurant reviews and get in all sorts of trouble all the time. So it must happen a lot to you.
It does. I think people now, maybe when I was starting, there could be, like, you could still get blacklisted here by certain PR firms. I think now people really understand I'm coming at it from a place of just trying to be constructive. This is not me trying to be negative or to shut anyone down. It's me saying, this is a really competitive market. Here's what you're doing wrong, because I've been dining out at least twice a week for 9 years, and not only here, but around the world. So if I'm looking at it through the lens of not only the local market, but the global market, maybe you should probably listen just a little bit to what I'm saying, because I'd like to think that I do know what I'm talking about.
So, like, what was the transition like from fiction writer to food critic, essentially?
Well, the thing is about, and I still write novels. I'm working tirelessly on one right now, but there's a limited number of like fictional energy, let's say, that I have in a day. And I found I transitioned away from working at New York University, Abu Dhabi. We moved back to Dubai, and I kind of just had extra time. So I'm still volunteering at Canine Friends. Shout out to Canine Friends. And then I was writing fiction. And then I was like, I just don't have all this energy. And then I came up with a name. So back in 2016, 2015, everybody seemed to have a little handle. You couldn't just be your own name on Instagram for reasons unknown. So I came up with A to Za'atar, and I was like, well, that's a really good name. I got to do something with that. So that's where it kind of started, that I had extra time and energy, and then I had this cool name, and then it just kind of went from there.
Did you start that on Substack, or did you start somewhere else and then migrate to Substack?
No, I had like a full WordPress blog. I'm usually an early adapter to things that I think will go the distance. So there was I was a very early adopter to say LinkedIn, also to Substack. So I think I'm at 5 years, or when they first started, because I was looking for something that was very straightforward, where the finances were kind of are more easily handled. And Substack was really my perfect fit. So, I've seen the growth, shout out to my 7,000,
Mm.
which I'm incredibly proud of, but it not like you wake up, and unless I feel like, unless you're, and look, Substack has huge, real, massive authors. I'm not coming in with that. This was very organic to grow.
Yeah, some of them like come on and all of a sudden have thousands of followers, like, but they're bringing those with them, right? Like you've got to grow it, like you say. So, what makes a great food story?
I think honesty and voice are probably the most interesting to me. Liam is a friend. He's also on Substack. There's something very distinctive when I sit down to read one of his reviews. And no one can write it like he writes it. And I think that same for me, that I think if you're reading what I'm writing, that I'm a singular voice. It's when it all kind of runs together, in that, there's certain magazine styles or editorial styles. And I really think it's important that authors, no matter where they're publishing, digital, print, whatever, that they really develop that for themselves. And there's not a good or a bad to it. I really do believe in a food review, and you would have read this in mine, that food is subjective. I cannot say definitively, maybe I had the best steak of my life, but you were there and then you didn't have the best steak of your life. That's still subjective. What we can both say is, was it worth the cost? Would I
Mm.
order again? Would I go back? So I think really dishes can be defined different ways, but when you get to the root of food writing, some writers are brilliant at it. I'm more on the functional side, which is, these things are things that matter to me. So is it something that, and another thing I always look for is women in the kitchen, right? So these are certain things that are important to me that might not be important to others. So
And left-hand dining, of course.
yes, left hand dining. Shout out to the I had been workshopping that article with myself for like 4 years. So I was glad I picked it up. But these are all things that matter to me. So it goes back to voice and, kind of, I guess, clarity. So why do I go back to writing? Is it because it's original? Is it because you're going somewhere I haven't been? There's so many reasons to read people's writing, but I think it's just kind of like, be consistent in that.
And what about sort of feature writing in the food landscape? Like, you obviously put that list together every week, of stories that you read. And like, what is it that captures your attention when it comes to a food story?
It's interesting. I sat down with Sarah Hedley-Heimer's. We were on a press trip last year, and she was like, okay, like, walk me through this. And I was like, okay. So I have essentially, there used to be different kind of readers and things that were available to us. Now they're all gone, but I subscribe to a lot of different things. So I'm just scanning through, and it's, what is interesting to me, which obviously, like, you will see a running theme about maybe cosmopolitans or deviled eggs. Those are of exceptional
Yeah.
interest. I'm going to feature things on sustainability whenever possible, maybe technology that's interesting. So it's really, every week it's a little bit different, but it's
Mhm.
And I'm a huge fan of the roundup of the random, and
Mhm.
that does go through. But I think, especially in Substack versus, let's say, a traditional blog or Instagram, Substack is kind of a place that I want you to kind of like hang out on a Saturday morning. It's not meant to be rushed. You can leave that tab open. You can leave 1,000 tabs open. You can come back to it. But it's a place to be maybe a little more political that I can't necessarily be on a blog or Instagram. Because my interests are mine. So if I write about maybe women or just different things in the industry, that's going to be through my lens.
Yeah.
So yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of like a niche story, and I feel like you do a good job of finding those. A lot of the tabs that I keep open now are tend to be from your roundup as well. Um, but what about what was I was going to ask about the common misconceptions of the food industry here,
Uh,
because there must be a lot.
for sure.
And you have a huge audience from the US, which I find interesting. So you
Yeah.
must see a
Yeah,
lot of that.
I've written for a number of publications in the States. I think that that's where somehow I got on press list for and continue to be on press lists for the States. I think kind of staying relevant is staying topical, staying, just like if there's any advice, it's just be consistent. Um,
Mm,
that it's so many people I think want to start something, a novel or a big project, starting a business. Look at what's behind you, and half of it is just going, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to keep doing it. So even
mm,
if it doesn't make sense at first, or you haven't found your audience, or it's not the right platform, that there's this kind of thing that I want to keep telling it this way. So it might take me a little while to get there, but now it's fun. And I actually, every now and then on like Friday night when I'm doing my last checks, I'm like, 7,000 people are going to see this. It kind of freaks me out a little. And then I kind of have to just move past that. But it is,
mm.
we kind of don't think of it, I guess, maybe as much, that you're just going to hit all these people's inboxes. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels a bit different, like, than social media, I guess, because you don't always, I mean, you can go back end, but it's not as prevalent in terms of like how many people have got eyes on what you're doing on
Yeah.
Substack. So you can kind of ignore the fact that 7,000 people are reading it. What about in terms of like, what are your various revenue streams? Like, how do you make it financially feasible out here?
Great question. Hasn't always been that way. I've been pretty lucky from the start to have, and I know you've touched on this in some of your previous articles, to have core clients, whether that is a big, like you can lock into a certain number of articles per month or, a consulting. As of 7 months ago, I did join up with Trescent Studio to do it is a hybrid of many things that I have done in the past. So
Mhm.
did I have a job specifically before? I didn't. I'd like to think it's going well. I'm so, so proud to work there and that they came to me because it is super niche. But
Mhm.
that stopped me or preclude me when we sat down to me saying, I'm going to continue to write for other publications. So it is difficult. It would be a don't quit your day job kind of until, or really know what your finances are, have a supportive partner. The free stuff, as it were, is nice,
Yeah.
but never free because it's the opportunity cost of going out and writing and transportation and all the things that go into it, right? So it's be they have a diverse portfolio. Um
Mm.
and, you know, because the other thing is we can also see clients get passed around this city. You'll have one restaurant and it goes from X to Y to Z. And you're like, well, okay. Like you have to wonder, you see it happen that people do
Yeah.
tend to jump around quite a bit. So even if you have a long term relationship, I think it's still good to kind of try new things or try different places or be an expert to somebody who's maybe outside. We do live in a place that does get a lot of clickbait. So it's nice to sometimes be that person to say, hey, Dubai is actually this. It's not this.
Yeah.
I'm telling you it is because I've lived here for 18 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I've got two questions now based on that answer, because I'm interested to know how that's all changed sort of. It like at the moment, I think the number is like 1,000 new residents a day moving into Dubai. It's like crazy. So that must make quite a huge difference, in like the F&B landscape that you are exploring, but also in terms of how many people are interested in your content. Like what's
Yeah,
changed?
it's about also trying to find them, connect with them. I was kind of speaking at a PR firm recently who invited me in, and like, man, I'm 45. I'm not on TikTok. Don't ever plan to be on TikTok. I realized that's a great place to find people to share content. Same with YouTube. I just have decided to kind of put my efforts and energies into different things. So it's, I think I'm on the radio, I get to do, sort of different things like that, but it's still, you still kind of have to fight for it all the time. There's a big event coming up in this month, and there's a new agency that's handling it, and they did not know who I was. And, that was like, okay, as good as you think you are, as much noise as you think you've made, there are still other opportunities to, find places to publish or tell a story in a different way, or find, our forever favorite in Dubai, hidden gem, and share that with people. So it is an uphill battle. And so for anybody who's feeling like, what do I write about or what do I do that's different? There's still a way it hasn't been covered. And I do think that people, I think writing in other, other languages is a really not explored. I'm a product of the American school system, and I can only write and think in English. For those of you that are watching or reading or whatever, like, Dubai is that place where you should and can be, putting content out there in different languages. So, maybe this person has a really good thing in English and that is a large market, but there are people coming here all the time who speak different languages.
Yeah, and that's great. And like also tastes and culinary interests, and then you've got obviously high end versus like budget, and yeah, there's a lot of choices to make in terms of food content that you want to do. But in terms of what about like obviously you do the communication side, like how do you balance that with being objective? And I'm assuming you obviously don't do any reviews of Tristan Studio, for example.
It would all be behind the scenes.
Yeah.
If and when, but it's, like, to me, and I've said this before, but like, it's about a chef-led experience, right? So I can offer what my suggestions are, especially as a different palate, a Western palate, but every time I go, I learn something new. So,
Yeah.
outside of Tristan Studio, the balance is, it's so fascinating to see behind the scenes, of how long maybe the trajectory is of something coming to process or coming to market. I'm very fortunate to know a lot of the editors already, so my media list was kind of like built in. But how do you prioritize? How, if it is, there is, for every trusted studio, there's Franzen is opening a restaurant, at the Atlantis, right? So there's always going to be competition. There's always that need to stay relevant. I think I'm fortunate to work for one of the best restaurants in the region and the world. So I'm very lucky that people, do want to come there. But I also, it's like twofold, that I want to forever live up to that reputation and make sure that my piece of it is as world standard or as global standard, because it's, sometimes not naming any names, but what I think PR gets away with here sometimes maybe wouldn't fly in a New York or a London. Yeah. Like, there's some maybe not best practices that are kind of going on. And I alluded to this recently that, you know, how people get my WhatsApp, I don't know. But even today I got a WhatsApp, a +44, and I was like, I have an email and that's the preferred way of communication, right? So, but then I'm on the other side as well. And what did I do today? I sent somebody an Instagram DM to invite them to something. So I'm like,
honestly, like I'm guilty of WhatsApp. Like honestly, I have like fully adopted it. But I don't. I really hate it when I'm like I get a cold like PR pitch over WhatsApp. Like that is just to me very weird. Like put that in my inbox. But if I have like a relationship, I find it really useful. But I feel like the WhatsApp conversation it bugs a lot of people. So yeah, you are not alone in that one for sure.
Yeah.
But I will literally slide into someone's DMs because like often I like have to find. I find like if I get someone's phone number only, for instance, for a national news story, and I've got to like cold call them, I
Mhm.
would much rather cold WhatsApp them than cold like voice call them.
To be
So
fair.
that's
But
what
I
I've
think
decided.
it depends on like if you're looking for a source versus you want to invite me to go, eat a burger. Those are two
Mhm.
different things.
Yeah,
So I think it's. Can you grab me my charger? Sorry. Since we're on the phone versus the computer,
I
just
know. Yeah,
scenes, the charger. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so I think it's very different that in true journalism, if you're filing for, a magazine or a newspaper and you're looking for a source, that's one thing, but it's another thing entirely to just drop in and ask me to go, I don't know, to, eat Italian food in 2 days. It's not, I get enough WhatsApps as it is, and those are important to me because that's how I do work.
yeah,
Everyone else, I would just say, please send me an email. I'm old.
yeah.
No,
Also, it gets lost in WhatsApp. Like you say, you get a lot. So I very easily miss WhatsApps over emails. So let's talk about Substack a little bit. Like, what are your thoughts on the plot? Like the platform? How has that helped you grow? Is that like a quite a big part of your revenue streams?
it's growing. It's definitely, transparently, I do wish it was more, but I will say it has led to more trips, more relevant things because I will maybe not see somebody, and this is not like, this is like real, I'm not making it up, but it's, I won't see somebody very senior, C-suite, global head of whatever, and then I months will go, and they'll be like, hey, didn't you do this, or I love your Substack, or I love reading about this every week. So I think by staying in people's inboxes every week that I stay relevant. So Substack feels like the right way to do that because it's more passive and it's not, like Instagram is just kind of all of us trying to show off. And I feel like
Yeah,
it's a place where you can kind of tell the story you want to tell or talk about things you want to talk about or places you've been. And I think that by having people that haven't logged out of, haven't unsubscribed, to be fair, I only have like, I probably lose like 2 to 4 subscribers a week, which I'm very happy with. But I won't see people for a long time, and then I'll see them, and they know what I've been up to, and they know what I've been doing, and I really think that Substack is a key part of that.
yeah. And once you build that email database, right? Like you can't lose that. Whereas you can lose your followers on Instagram quite easily. The algorithm can hide your stuff. It's a very different thing. I definitely agree. And with the unsubscribers, like at first I was really shaken by that. I was like emailing for feedback to everyone. And now I'm like, no, it's really like you lose maybe one and then you gain two and then you might lose three. And then, yeah, it tends to even out, right?
It does, and for those, I think it's kind of a, it's so important to just keep on. Again, you will find your people, and it might not even be, you might not see them, because, again, I won't see some of these people for months, and then suddenly they're like, oh, this, or hey, I was thinking of a trip, and then you kind of popped into my inbox. That has happened. And I feel that's done in a way that Instagram necessarily wouldn't, or maybe even LinkedIn wouldn't. There's something really unique about Substack that allows for kind of like a personal yet professional way. Now plugged in.
And what, like I said earlier about your US demographics, because you shared those on Substack, right?
Yeah.
Like you've got more US subscribers than you do UAE. Is like, why do you think that is? Is it harder to grow in the UAE?
I don't. That is a good question. Sorry about that. I tried to charge my phone, and we'll see how long we go. I really, I don't know if it's just because the US is bigger, or maybe kind of like I mentioned that PR here is finite, and in the US I feel like I'm still tapping, there's so many like companies like just that are constantly still, I'm still getting on press, releases for, and that sort of thing. It feels like there's even more ways to just communicate. So it's that, but I think in writing for, like, I wrote for Tasting Table in the US for, I was probably, my contract was probably like 8 to 9 months, and that just put me on, like, I don't know if it's SEO thing or what it is, or that Substack is just, if they look at the macro version and see how many users are in the US. It's probably the bulk. So
Yeah.
that's just maybe where they come from. But
I
I'm
think
with you. Yeah, I think, and I know you've mentioned it, like every time I see people that are, rising stars or this and that, I'm like, well, can we break it down by like region? Could we get into
yeah.
the us that are in other places?
That's it, because like it is super US UK centric, I think, and it'd be nice to, and like a lot of people here, like in the UAE, they have signed up and like end up in their inbox, but they don't use the actual Substack app. So it's actually hard to get more followers or subscribers through the Substack app or like notes or whatever. Because I keep getting, so many Substacks about Substack, and I get like loads of here are like 10 tricks to get 30 followers a day through notes, and like they're irrelevant for anyone with a geographical niche, I think,
Yes.
which is frustrating.
Yeah, my algorithm was serving me up a few less of those, top 10 reasons of doing this. And I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I just need to get out to a larger kind of group. And I don't necessarily want to put in the time of like comment on everybody's thing and then do this, because then it's not real. I'd much rather connect with Substacks that, to me, like there's one, it's called Food is Stupid. It is out of Chicago. The author is hilarious. I have no idea how I found it, but it is, I like genuinely look forward to it hitting my inbox every week, because nobody is writing about food like this person is writing about food, and it's in the best possible way.
And that's exactly what you're saying, right? You have to have your own voice, your own style. What about in the UAE? Do you think there's room for more foodie journalists, any like specialists in general? Or you think it's better to stay a bit more generalist?
I think yes, although it's funny because like I was new when I started in 2016. I felt like the new kid, and still, I guess, like now I'm a little more old guard, but we always have more room. It should always be a place. Maybe it's chef driven. Like I don't see necessarily a lot of, I know chefs work very hard. Maybe a former chef, somebody who is coming at it from like pure kitchen standpoint, much like James Knight Pacheco has done with his amazing podcast, the JKP podcast. Go listen to it if you want to learn anything about food in the UAE and the region. But I think if he had like a Substack where he really focused on maybe the technique or something like that. So if I saw a space, to me, that's where it would be. That I think there's a lot of reviewers and a lot of publications, and a lot of people have been writing about food for a very long time. So maybe someone in the Gen Z space, or somebody who is coming from kitchen experience, I would love to see and read their stuff.
Yeah, more like a B2B style stuff. Like that would be quite good actually, because I guess you've got caterer, but B2B just doesn't. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not as
and
good
it's
here.
it's behind a paywall, and we all know, without naming names, it's a pay to play situation, right? So if you're advertising, you're getting coverage. Not always the case, but a lot of the time. What I like about Substack is it is freed from that. I don't have to write about something because somebody's paying me to it. If somebody wanted to sponsor me, great. Maybe it would work with, who I think my audience is, or who I know my audience to be. I have a call tomorrow, actually, with somebody who's been following and wants to do something special for my subscribers. So that's kind of fun, right? That's a space that, again, does it look like traditional income? No, but is it going to be really fun? I think yes. So it's, I'd love more sponsored links and subscribers, but I understand it's still at the rate at which Substack is growing. It's really difficult for us to pay for all these Substacks.
Yeah.
So if there was like a yearly or annual or monthly thing, and you could go and just say, this month I'm going to read these articles, and the money would still go to you or me or whoever. That might be a better model, because right now you want to support everybody, but you just can't.
I think I saw people talking about this on Substack in terms of like, buy me a coffee sort of thing. Like just that, at least that being an option, like, free, buy me a coffee monthly, like that could be like one of the tiers. I thought that was a pretty good idea. Maybe you get like a certain amount of free articles within buy me a coffee.
Yes, it's not within Substack, but I do have that link. There's actually Ko-fi, so Kofi. So it's a way that other content creators have been like, hey, I get it, you can't subscribe or do whatever, but if you can knock me a few bucks this month, so it's in my signature. But I would love it if it came through the Substack app.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a good, like I've seen that a lot on the notes section. So I think a lot of people have been calling for it, and they seem to release new features like all the time. So hopefully that's in the works, but who knows? And like you say, there's huge authors, and I mean, yeah, I need to start culling my some of my subscriptions, I think, because I've got so many. But when I think about it, it's like usually about $5 to $8, right? Which is $5 is the price of a coffee. So I don't mind that. Like, if I'm not going to be subscribing to a lot of the mainstream publications, then I might as well be supporting independent journalists. And like, that's what I love about this. So I do definitely think that you just need to be a little bit more. I think everyone's going to have to just become maybe slightly more discerning, or they like chop and change every so often. But I definitely don't think it's the end of Substack yet.
No.
Definitely
I
right at the beginning.
hope not. I know there was some fuss, I think, last year because of maybe who was allowed on the site or that sort of thing. So everybody has their own research to do. I just think from a straightforward perspective that, like, it's my dad's favorite read is mine. He tells me every week how much he loves it, and in such a weird way of like sharing what I've been up to. It's kind of almost a diary for me as much as it is anything else. And then I can be like, oh yeah, like I wanted to buy that thing or I wanted to do that, and I'll just go back through and look. So I certainly hope it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Actually, I'm interested for your roundup. Do you sort of like save that stuff during the week, or do you?
It's work. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so bad at that. I forget to do it.
It starts on
I mean, it does help that I also forget to close all the tabs, and they genuinely are my tabs. But yeah, I forget to sort of make note of them, and then have to rifle through everything.
That's when WhatsApping yourself is always a helpful trick. Yeah. But no, I genuinely start Saturday morning. Like, it goes out Saturday morning, and I have it, like, they're all queued, or like the drafts of them are there. So I just go in. It's just like now it's part of my week, right? So and if there was a real job of making newsletters, which I would love for mine to be, it's so fun. So, it's not work for me. I really, it's like, oh, fun. I get to look through crazy, weird articles every day. Great.
They could be a thing though. Like, I was thinking about this recently in terms of like doing other people's newsletters. I know people do that, like newsletter writers. Like, maybe you could approach a chef, for example, and be like, I know you're super busy in the kitchen, but this is a great idea for you. And then you collaborate on that content. That maybe those will be like new opportunities in the future as well, which in the UAE, I mean, specifically, I know it exists elsewhere, but not quite here yet.
Watch this space. There is somebody I have been chatting to. So let's see if something can come of it. And I think, sometimes I'm just on like a monthly from certain writers or authors, and it doesn't, just because I do mine every week doesn't mean there's no rule that says you have to do it that way. I just, if I did it monthly, it would be like 1,000 links and nobody would go through it. And I've even debated splitting it up and then I was like, nobody wants that in their inbox. Like, we get too many emails as is. So to me, it's very purposeful to do it 4 times a month. And then, for paid subscribers, they get the bonus. Tomorrow's is going to be a good one. So it's what's best for you, what's best for your business.
Yeah, I think that's one of the ones I've grappled with a lot, is how many emails do you want to send out a lot? Because I am concerned about clogging up people's inboxes. But if I think it's, I don't know, valuable, then I'm not too worried about it.
Obviously, you released one today. I mean, we're speaking today. This might go up, or people might link this or see this on Saturday. And some of these jobs or opportunities are timely. So I think that it's okay to say, hey, I have a really good opportunity and I want to share that with my network. And, just making sure that you establish yourself so people are like, oh, I'm not going to waste any time. Like, I know this is going to be a good opportunity and I'm going to look at it straight away.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's why I did it today, because one of them was like, had a deadline of 2 days away. So I was like, well, I might as well just wrap it all up now. But it's a work in progress, getting people to understand what it is I am actually trying to do. But it seems to be getting through. So have I asked you all the questions I can't? Oh, one that I'm very interested in asking you about is how influencers have impacted food reviewing and the food landscape in general. Like, there's quite a difference between writing lengthy restaurant reviews and scoring freebies and taking videos on
Or even
stories.
understanding food. So now that I'm on the other side of things and I run the social media for Trusted Studio, and I do see the asks that come through, and it's just hilarious to me. If I go on any person who's like, oh, I want a table, and I'm like, okay, I always optimistically look, maybe it's somebody who is, a chef or somebody anyway. And then it's just only pictures of them, just constant pictures of them. Like, you have no interest in this restaurant. You see, something you want to tick off a box, or, put on your list, or whatever it is. And I think the more difficult side is on probably the press side, which is how do you discern who is going to come in? Because the difference, if you want engagement, if you want views, you sometimes do need to work with influencers. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Some of them put out amazing content. I put myself in the key opinion leader category, which is my network is outstanding, and the people who follow me are really high network people, so decision makers, that sort of thing. But if you are just starting and you want to make some noise, get influencers in. The people who do want to come to a launch party, because I never want to come to a launch because there's nothing interesting at a launch. It's just a lot of food that isn't on the menu, or it's getting passed around. It's not a very good look at what the restaurant is actually doing. So I think there's room for influencers if they're utilized correctly. So
In a different way.
correct. And for example, if you look at like J1, feels like a kind of influencery place. I don't necessarily, I've been to 2 different locations there. Nothing is really giving me, authentic food vibes. However, it's wildly successful, right? Like, there are people who absolutely want to go there. So maybe that's the kind of places that these food influencers should go. Because there will always, myself included, I might not go, but maybe I want to see behind the scenes, or maybe I want to see what that menu is, or maybe what they're doing is super cool. So there's nothing wrong with saying, for this location, the best person to bring in is an influencer, and pay them accordingly, because the content they're producing and the audience that they have is great. Do your homework, check them out, make sure their audience is authentic, and that's a whole other story. But anyway, I think used correctly, influencers can do great stuff for the industry.
I think this is a good moment for me to bring up House of Habanero, because I've learned a lot about this recently. Because working on the editorial side, I don't really work with influencers. I know who they are and what they do. But when we started the business, we were like talking to PRs about how we get the word out there. And obviously influencers is one of the best. There's like hot sauce, right? Like, it's perfect Instagram or TikTok kind of content. But I did not know where to start. I had to learn so much. It was a steep learning curve. And that is one of the biggest things in terms of like authenticity. But then, we're a small startup. So like, how do we can't afford to pay for the big influencers either. So it's like really hard to, which ones have got some real reach, but you can't go there with your budget. And then you want to find the ones with like authentic audiences. But that is also hard to discern, like you say. So it's a bit of a minefield.
It is. There was during lockdown, or not lockdown, but maybe just after, Carnistore had done a collab with one of the hot sauces, and I can't believe I'm blanking on this. And they sent it to everybody to get their reaction shots. And they had done this whole campaign with, so it was like chicken wings, and then it was like this person's hot sauce. And I just thought it was like a really brilliant way to showcase hot. Thank you, Liam. Haute, Haute.
Hot sauce, yeah. She doesn't do it anymore, sadly.
I know. That's why I was like, but I still think that campaign was brilliant, because they worked with people who just really like food or hot sauces, and they gave a medium, which is delicious protein from Carna Store. So everybody wins because it's something that was like, okay, kind of how hot can you go? And this is people in real time eating hot food, which obviously Hot Ones is showing us that the
Yeah.
audience for that is off the charts. So I think that when you kind of tie into that, we love a local collab, kind of story. So is it, whatever it is, whatever version of that, I think they just really nailed it.
Yeah, I like that. You must have come across Melody as well from Curious Elephant. She did collab with the Noodle House recently, and I think DK did.
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, he had his, I
He
know.
had a
Yeah,
dinner one night
he
with
did, but
him.
it's been amazing to see. And I feel like there's room for everybody in the market, which I also love. Everybody's kind of branded it a little differently, maybe where they source their peppers from or whatever it is. Mel
Mm.
is an excellent story, and I can remember getting some of her first stuff. And now, like, you go to 1004, and then she's in there, and it's just like what an amazing story.
Yeah, it's great. We actually don't have Melodies, unfortunately, because she is working on the shelf stable recipe and we don't have refrigeration at the moment. But we will be definitely working with her soon. But it's great to see, like, we have about 5 local brands at the moment, and then we work with local distributors. So we've got, like, you must have come across Camp's Kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
They sell it right most of the time, and then there's Jinxie's, which do chili oil. Chili oil, like, I would say, right, we've got like 100 hot sauces and a bunch of, like, now we've got spicy crisps and chili oils, but chili oils and chili crisps are like trending hard in
Yeah.
the UAE. They sell better than any of the hot sauces, to be honest. Like, it's very interesting to see how much people want them. And I met actually someone through the Desert Pros network who is here and in Dubai Hills working for a Mexican daily newspaper,
Mm-hmm.
and brings Mexican hot sauces and, like, and chili oils over all the time. And we tried some of hers today, and, like, they were incredible, and they are just authentic, natural, like, authentic. I think they're called salsa macha in Mexico, which is essentially just a chili crisp. She didn't even know what chili crisp was, but she was just like, this is salsa macha, basically. And they're, yeah, so we're now planning to bring those in, like the traditional stuff rather than the trendy stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've gone off into tangent, but, like, there's
And I would say I would love to read more about that.
yep.
Bringing a business to market is something that is not covered enough here. Certain people have done, I think, really well, but they're only telling their success stories. It would be great to see more the nitty gritty of, what it is, because we are a country or a city that really loves opportunity and people doing
Yeah.
things. But then, the reality is like, okay, you have to get this signed and this thing. And then we tried this one person and another. And maybe that all relates back to Substack because we all have to try
Yeah.
things. But I would say that's something I would read about, is that we don't have that voice yet. Right. So
So this is something I spoke to my husband about, because he, like, neither of us had worked in F&B, nor retail, nor e-commerce, and it was a huge learning curve. And he's now that we've set up House of Habanero, he's going to replicate the sort of model of setting up an e-commerce store with a couple of other brands. And then I was like, I'm going to then write your Substack on how to set up e-commerce businesses
100%.
in the UAE. I think it'd be super interesting,
Yeah.
because it's such a good, affordable way for, like, small startups to begin. Because obviously, like, we wanted to have, like, a full, like, this is hot sauce we're talking about. You have to taste it. We wanted that to be like a physical space, but the overheads are insane for a new startup. It's too risky. So
It does. I think it goes back to, if we think of who's owning it, and we all want to of course we want to open What's On or Time Out and see, a roundup and have our picture or whatever it is. We all want to see that, of course we do. However, you can try and pay and get people in and whatever, or you can own the content and kind of do it yourself, right? So of course I think, maybe hot sauce, it lends itself to video a little bit better than writing about places.
yeah,
But I do think
we do have a blog on the website, but I am in charge of that and too busy to do it, essentially.
Yeah.
I need to. Yeah. But I agree, like, video wise, but obviously, because, like you said, we've got Hot Ones. The amount of times people have told us to do our version of Hot Ones, I'm like, well, I don't know who I'm going to invite to do like a proper, to do that as big as Hot Ones. Like we've got to be serious. Like I want to do our own version, with like chefs and people like you for sure in the region, and that will start. I want to do it more around takeaways and like your favorite takeaways with hot sauce, because I want to call it hot takes. Like that.
Done. Like trademark that. Boom, it's happening.
Yeah.
Anyway, it still goes back to, and I tell anybody, like you said, Instagram or any platform one can go down tomorrow. With Substack, I could start over tomorrow with 7,000, and yep, and that's why I would just, I'm glad they've offered this live experience. It's even though phone, we not a learning curve, but it would be cool to
that's what the Atlas Obscura guy was saying about about the platforms that can just go down. He didn't actually know that you could own your database with Substack, but I was like, you absolutely can. You're not going to lose that. So that's the beauty of the platform.
Yep.
I think we've gone through all the questions that I'd originally put together, but would love to sort of see if anyone has any questions. But at the same time, I can't see what anyone's writing.
I think you can see just little comments and who's joined, but I haven't seen, for our little group. Okay,
I can see little comments. So I guess, if anyone has any questions about foodie journalism,
hot takes on
not about hot sauce, because I just hold the conversation with that. But yeah. You know what I realized as well, like last time I did this. Oh, good one, Emma.
Yeah.
Predictions for the Michelin 2025 list.
FZN we'll get to at least. Everyone else will retain. Who else? I'd love to see if Manau get somewhere on there. That's where Folly's new one. But I don't think we're going to see the shakeups maybe we want to see. I would also... yeah. Well, yes. That no one would be cheering louder. And I think maybe that's the best part about it is most people will be in a room of their peers, and it is a true celebration. So whether it's Takahisa or it's FZN or Trusted Studio moving up to 3, then those are all things that are entirely possible on May 22nd. Let's see if I can get.
Do you think we'll get our first 3-star this year?
It would be a good marketing campaign, wouldn't it? I think Michelin's pretty smart. I mean, they've obviously taken on a lot more cities these days. So I think it's a good story. I do think we have good talent. Hardest working chef. I'm going to shout out. I think well, you can contact me. Give me a DM for the rest of that. I would shout Chef Reef, Othman, and Kelvin. Those to me are, Himanshu is tireless, but I've always liked what Reef has done. He's done it his own way. He's done it differently. He has a great portfolio. I wish other chefs would kind of follow that model and maybe worry a little bit less about the stars and the awards and just run a successful, group of restaurants. There's nothing wrong with that. As for bad guys, we don't have any bad guys. We just have, I'd say we have a few outsiders that we would love to bring in. And for their own reasons, not everybody has to be best friends, but I do think for whatever reasons, certain people have decided to kind of be in their own lane, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Are there a lot of chefs and restaurants here that have just said they're not at all interested in, going for the Michelin star? They're just,
yeah. Of course they do. So it's great because I think competition breeds just a better dining experience for everybody. And when you have the guide in town or 50 Best or Go and Mio, these are all things that, a chef or a kitchen can find that reward. And it's not that a What's On or a Timeout are a great place to be recognized. It's just maybe not the same kind of international standard. So if chefs, maybe Bjorn Franzen is a good example, he's worked around the world and open to great success. Maybe that's what makes Dubai an interesting market for him, is that he knows that recognition or that type of recognition can take place versus some of the other cities where maybe that doesn't exist yet.
So anyone else questions at all? Emma's doing all the legwork into questioning.
That's okay.
I appreciate it. Emma was the first one to log on as well, so I appreciate you still being here.
Yes. It went by fast, though, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing with the first one I did, the only other one that I've done. The call kept ending, so we had to keep restarting it. It was very awkward because of that. It's just my face that I was looking at for a lot of the time.
A little frustrating.
I'm glad that didn't happen, basically.
Thanks. I guess just to wrap up from my side, it's always, I think Substack is great because like it's not really a place that you would make suggestions or feedback. Like it's kind of on you in a good and bad way to edit yourself and work towards being a better writer, which I hope we all are, or developing your voice or all that sort of thing. So it's something that I'm still thinking of, what's a new, either series or something that I could do that would be interesting to people. I haven't really had time. There's a few ideas I have, that I'm thinking maybe I haven't found a voice for that in a traditional publication, but why don't I use my own network? So that sort of thing that kind of maybe I see in the future for my Substack, at least.
I have become a full-on Substack evangelist these days. Honestly, I do. It's one of my new special interests. I won't shut up about it because I genuinely think, like, obviously I'm a bit of a freelance evangelist too, and I think people should be all freelance. And if they are, just start a Substack, right? Like, you can build that database and then not necessarily have to rely on all the commissions or pitching in order to do the stories that you really want to do. And like, in my view, in terms of like full-time work as well, like AI is not going away. In-house like staff roles are going to be more rare in going forward. So you might as well learn how to keep yourself afloat now than
get on it. There's no
in the
point in
future.
waiting. Like if you have one, sit on the name at least, or
even if you are
full
time, get it started. You do the content for free. I know some companies don't really allow it, but you can do it on the slide.
Do once a month. Yeah.
Just don't promote it.
Okay, cool. Well, maybe we should check in and like, I don't know, state of affairs, state of the union in 6 months, 8 months. When I don't know what my next goal will be. Maybe when you hit your first big goal on Substack. But
that would be awesome. And we're going to be doing Desert Pros meetup as well. So it's nice to sort of just connect with the rest of the Substack community there as well. The very, very tiny Substack community that is in the UAE as of now. So anyone who is still here on the call, please, can you start your own Substack? I know Liam obviously has his own, so that's wonderful. All right.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for setting this up. We love a learning experience. And if anybody, they know where to find both of us. So I'm going to go look on the House of Habanero website and.
Oh yeah, please do.
Look at the chili crisps. That's what I'm doing.
We have about yeah, well, that definitely. But we have about 140 products at the moment. So if you need any help with the curation side of it, that is my husband's favorite thing to do. And we have bundles and stuff as well. But genuinely, he is on his phone all the time, advising customers what to buy because he loves it.
Sounds good. Okay.
Right, cool.
Well, you will see me in your inbox tomorrow and on Saturday, and I look forward to looking for my next freelance job through you.
Thank you so much. All right. Take care, Courtney.
Bye.
Bye.